What's up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I'm Jeff Hartman, not Pez, not the guy making these picks. The guy that you see next to me if you're watching live on YouTube, or the other voice that you're about to hear on the audio side, is Pez, the man with the plan. What's up, Pez? How's it going?
We're surviving, Jeff. Coming off of that tough week last week, 1-1. We're happy. Crazy week, crazy games. I mean, now we get a week to take off and breathe, and one more to go.
It was crazy. We were close to going 0-2 last week. That's
Or 2-0. I mean, I think
That's
we should
true.
have.
That's true.
I think those games. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna get into it.
Well, let's start there. Let's start with the championship weekend preview. We had the Ravens minus 3.5 against the Chiefs. The Chiefs obviously went outright. It was close, 17-10. The Ravens had their opportunities. Zay Flowers fumble into the end zone. Lamar Jackson's interception into triple coverage in the fourth quarter. The Ravens let us down, and I'm not sure if I said it on this podcast or another one, but I was not shocked because I've seen this Ravens team collapse so many times as a Steelers fan. This did not surprise me. But what about you? What did you think of those games?
And going back to one of my old partners, one of my old buddies, the Yogi. I think we even though we lost, we had the right side, and losing bet can still be a good bet. I still think Baltimore was the right play. I think if Baltimore plays that team 10 times, they're going to win a lot more than they lose. They did everything that they needed to do to beat that team. If you hold Kansas City or any team scoreless in the second half, which they did, you should be winning that game, especially at home.
Yeah.
When I look at this box score, I'm starting to get into next week a little bit, but Kansas City's just not that good. I mean, their offense is not that good. Defense is great, but their offense it's probably the worst offensive team they've had going into any of these Super Bowls. There's two guys. Now, they're two of the best, and they're two Hall of Famers, but at the end of the day, when you look at Kansas City's box score rushing, Pacheco, 68 yards. They held that team to 89 rushing yards. No points in the second half. And like you said, that play, Flowers diving into that end zone and that interception, that's one of the best plays probably in NFL history. Probably saved the game. I mean, they score there, they're going to be tied, and then they're in field goal range at worst when my man Lamar throws up a triple coverage dream ball. I don't know what he was thinking there. And then if you look at Baltimore, I think really what we saw last week, we saw Baltimore superior talent. They had superior defense at the end of the day, and they just got outcoached. I mean, you look at what they did. 8 and what do we have? 14 rushes for the whole game. Lamar Jackson he led the team in 8 rushing attempts. Your running backs combined for 5 rushes or 3 rushes out of your running back. I mean, you're not winning in the NFL if you do that. And the Eagles got caught up in this stuff too. And I bet a lot of it's Reed and Spagnuolo. I think he wanted them to do that. Don't rush the ball. Force Lamar to throw the ball. And I'm going to confuse him with some guys running around the middle of the park. And I wouldn't be shocked if 7 out of 8 times if Baltimore replayed that game, they win that game. And then you look at the offense, Mahomes, I love watching Zandy's offense. It looks like they're doing a lot. He's handing the ball off with three 5-yard passes. And, at the end of the day, Kelsey, we talked about 2 weeks ago, had a bad game first round. 11 for 11. Guy was unstoppable. Unstoppable. And that, if I was a Baltimore fan, I don't know. I'm going to have to start checking my allegiance on that team. They got to get a new coach. I don't know what the hell's going on there, Jeff. You can't run the ball 3 times to your running back in a playoff championship game to get to the Super Bowl. You just can't do it.
Well, they lost their defensive coordinator. He's the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. But, let me ask you this question, because I feel like this is kind of where the NFL is trending and it's boiling down to. When you talk about baseball, everyone always says, just look at the pitching matchup. Just take the team with the better pitcher. Are we getting to the point now where you just say, take the better quarterback? Because Lamar Jackson is not better than Patrick Mahomes. I don't care. You can talk about the MVP. You can talk about his running ability. When it matters most, one is making the play and one isn't. And we know which one I'm talking about. So do you trend in that direction, or do you think the NFL is trending in that direction?
I mean, we talked about it all year. And, we had we had a 5-point algorithm, or whatever you want to call it, system when
Yeah.
we're making these bets, and quarterback was number one.
Right.
And I agree with you 100%. I mean, Baltimore did not check that box. Having said that, I think Baltimore had a better offense and defense. And I think Lamar probably played well enough to win that game. I think if their play calling was better, they probably blow that team out in the second half. They could not move that ball. How many third and longs did they have? How many times did that team just look like first drive? I mean, they're 3 and out. And when you're not running the ball, you're not ticking the clock. My man Andy does not score a point in the second half. He ticked that clock. They burned those things with a little dump offs, little screens, and he's not looking to get yards much. You're trying to tick the clock and keep it
Yeah.
out of Lamar's hands. But at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes, uh, he may be the best playoff quarterback ever, even maybe better than Brady, right? I mean, that guy, he moves at a different speed. His brain is moving at a different speed than that game. And Michael Jordan had that same ability. They're seeing the game differently than everybody out there. And he won that game. Patrick Mahomes won that game. The guy's amazing. I mean, he
Yeah.
did what he had to do. And you could argue if they need another score, maybe they would have called it different. But I don't know. I think Baltimore's defense made a couple adjustments, came on, and I feel sad for Lamar. I know as a Pittsburgh fan that I'm not getting any sympathy from a lot of our
No.
listeners out there, but I thought that guy, he probably deserved to win that. I mean, it was his time, and you might not get another time. I was talking about with a friend of mine, the Baltimore and the Detroit Lions. It could have been like the Atlanta Falcons when Matt Ryan and they gave
Yeah.
up the Super Bowl. You never saw them again.
That's
And that was
true.
it. Just broke that team.
Sometimes people poo-poo experience. They'll say, "Oh, but the Chiefs they have all the experience, but the Ravens are more talented. The Ravens are the better offense, better defense." Everything that you just said to justify you picking the Ravens, which I get. That game in and of itself was a picture why experience matters.
Sure.
Because that team, the Chiefs team, had been there, done that. They had already lived it, and Baltimore had not.
Nope.
And they goaded them into so many penalties. They pushed and pushed, and once they retaliated, 15 yards goes the other way.
Sure.
They did that with experience. And so when I watched that game, I said, man, the experience factor in this game is off the charts, and it's in the favor of the Chiefs. And I think that's something that we don't talk about maybe
Sure.
enough, but it did in this game. That's what I think. What do you think?
Well, it looked exactly like the Super Bowl last year. Where in the second half, the Eagles play calling got tight and experience kicked in, and
Yeah.
they looked like a nervous team the whole game. Baltimore, the play calling, it just seemed like they got caught up in the moment. And I know the Eagles talked about that last year too in that second half. And you're looking at that from the sideline as a coordinator, head coach. You're calling plays, and you're doing what the new systems call for. You use statistics and numbers when they have certain guys in the box or enough guys in the line. You're going to throw or pass, and I think teams are going to start thinking about that a little bit. And Spagnuolo's a smart dude. I think he baited them into throwing that ball all day, and it worked. And I think Kansas City probably is in the Super Bowl with the worst team they've had for Mahomes. Guy has very limited weapons. I mean, Pacheco's decent. He's got one receiver. And their offensive line's great, though. You got to give them that. I don't think
Yeah.
Mahomes didn't get touched, right? I mean, he didn't get sacked other than the penalties that they
He
gave up.
he did get sacked once because I remember it was Nance that said it was the first time he had been sacked
Right,
since
right,
the AFC Championship game last year in the postseason.
right.
He doesn't get touched very often. We'll put it that
Does
way.
not. And he didn't
Not
even
enough.
run. I mean, they held him in check there, and just game management was what it came down to. And I, I don't know. It's going to be a tough game to call next week. I think tough game.
Well, we're not going to jump the gun. We're not giving you any Super Bowl picks here. We're going to talk about the line of the Super Bowl here in a second, but let's get through the NFC Championship game first. The Detroit Lions, which we rode that train as long as we could until the wheels literally fell off. They did pull through a little backdoor cover there, but the Detroit Lions, the San Francisco 49ers were giving 7, and they end up winning by, what was it? Is it 3 or 4 was the final score? I can't remember. But
34-31.
it
Big
was
cover for the Lions.
yeah, but it was the choke job of all choke jobs for Dan Campbell and the boys. What were your thoughts on that?
I mean, when you go 14-6 against the spread, Jeff, we got to we got to call that the Super Bowl champion. I don't know if I've seen a team go 14-6 against the spread. And right now, San Francisco's got a losing record against the spread. So At the end of the day, Detroit Lions, I love you. I thank you. Made us a lot of money this year. And,
Yeah.
and I've been hearing all week about the fourth down calls. And I think Campbell did what Campbell did all year. I think San Francisco got lucky again. I really do. And you can second guess any call Coach makes or what have you. I can't believe Detroit lost that game. I still can't. Oh my God. I was calling it over. Well, you know what, Jeff? And I got a little something to say to some of my compadres out there, some of our followers. I was getting side message. They took the money line. They got greedy. You can't get greedy in these games. They have those lines set for a reason. And at the end of the day, they were dead on straight about this game again. 100% they were right. And you could have had Detroit win that outright, but at the end of the day, Vegas wins. Vegas rules. Vegas
They
knows
always
what they're
do.
doing. I think it was probably about an even public bet. I think we had probably 50% on both sides because the line didn't really budge at all. It was 7 solid the whole time. But I, I can't believe they let Purdy run that ball down their throat the whole second half. I mean, they did a decent job against Debo, did a great job against McCaffrey, right? When we look at that box score, McCaffrey under 100 yards. I mean, if without Purdy, they're keeping that team at about 100 or a little bit under 100 yards. Purdy rushes for 48. I mean, Purdy didn't look too hot in that first half, and that
No.
team, that ball was stalled. I think they got up too early, and like you said, experience, right? Halftime, they look like again second that game just like the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Up at halftime, you're making the impossible happen, and God, I feel bad for them. I feel bad for Campbell. Happily, they're keeping the coordinators. It looks like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
whole
they
thing.
are. Ben Johnson, I think is his name. He said he's staying. The
Yep,
thing with me, and again, everyone would say, let's look at the quarterback matchup like we do with pitchers in baseball. And you'd say, well, Jared Goff is the better quarterback over Brock Purdy. Well, not in this game, he wasn't, because Brock Purdy, his mobility, like you said, 42 yards rushing, that doesn't even illustrate how well he manipulated the pocket, how
he
well he
did.
escaped pressure, extended plays, and then just kept the chains moving, kept the ball out of Jared Goff's hands. And so for that, when you look at Jared Goff, I mean, Jared Goff didn't make the big mistake, but he also didn't win the game. And he didn't get a lot of help. I'll give him credit there. And I've never
He
been a
did.
Jared Goff guy, but still, Brock Purdy was the better quarterback.
Well, Purdy did have a pick. So we're going to have to knock him on that. No picks for Jared Goff on the road again. On the road, statistically, he was the best quarterback in the league this year. I mean, that guy, I think he had 7 road wins, and that's pretty impressive. Turnovers were down on the road compared to last year. Uh, they rushed for, was it 182 yards? I mean, you got
Yeah.
to win the game when you rush for 182 yards. Goff put up 273. The one mistake I think they made, and they showed it when they needed points at the end. They let Goff air it out. They ran right down the field again. They
Yeah.
just charged right down there. They got that touchdown, and I heard a guy say, I think on second or third down they ran it, burned a little bit more clock, and they couldn't get the ball back. But I think they got a little gun shy too. And that's something you got to give it to the Chiefs. They know how to manage that clock. They know how to milk lead in the playoffs, and that is just the name of the game, especially in the quarterback throwing league we have now. Quarterbacks coach out there. It was almost boring in that second half, Baltimore and Kansas City, right? All they did was dinky donuts, drop it off here, drop it off there, and their guys make catches, and they don't turn the ball over in Kansas City. So,
No.
I was thinking about it a lot last night. I don't think we have the 2 best teams. I think we have the best quarterback and the best tight end, and I think San Francisco's fortunate to get there. But when you look at it player for player, San Francisco's probably the more talented team. They at position for position,
Yeah.
they have to have more talent. I think about my Birds. That's why I'm wearing my green again. Probably the Eagles have more talent than both of those teams. So maybe talent isn't what gets you there in the Super Bowl and the playoffs. And I think coaching really came into play in these playoffs. And Andy Reid's maybe the best guy we've had in a long time in that league. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is.
So we finished the conference championship weekend 1-1, which moves the NFL record to 47-31-2 on the season. And we are not, like I said earlier, we're not giving you the the Super Bowl pick, not today, but we do want to talk about some of the early action on that Super Bowl. Now I'm looking at DraftKings Sportsbook right now, and I'm just looking at the overarching Super Bowl odds. And right now, what I find to be unbelievably interesting is how the line has moved since this game became final. So since the San Francisco 49ers punched their ticket in the NFC Championship game, the nightcap, at first it was San Fran minus 2.5. By Monday morning, I checked, it was San Fran minus 1. You said you saw one where the Chiefs were given points, and now it's San Francisco minus 2 with a total of 47 points. That's what I have in front of me. So, Pez, what do you think about this line?
And this is the one game we got to be careful with the line. What they don't want is a huge public play on one side. I mean, that to Vegas is, this is the most bet upon game of the year in America. I mean, probably not the world. It's probably soccer at that point, but there are going to be millions of dollars. So,
Yeah.
When that came out, I, my phone starts lighting up. We were making predictions. I thought Kansas City would be laying 3. You, you wonder what Vegas knows. And when they look at this, and they're not doing it by eye spotting it. They're using computers, they're using algorithms, they're playing that game out. And when they play that game out, it appears that talent wise and data wise, San Francisco are winning more games than they're losing. And that's a terrifying thing as a gambler to think about right now, because they did not look confident, where the Kansas City Chiefs did. And when you look into the numbers, though, I mean, last week, maybe the Chiefs weren't that good. Maybe Baltimore wasn't that bad. Maybe the Lions were great. If you really look at that game, maybe the Niners did beat a great team, and maybe the Chiefs beat a team that just had a horrible week. And they exposed them a little bit, not having a lot of talent around Lamar. That line, I don't know if I've ever seen the Super Bowl line jump that quick in a matter of days. I have it now back to laying 2. The Chiefs getting 2. So I usually about a week after that's posted, that line doesn't move too much unless you have a major injury. So I would be shocked if it moves too much. People do start bringing in some big money in the second week, and once they start looking at it, come Monday, we start having the pressers, and everybody starts really thinking about this game. I mean, somebody puts in $1 million bet, that line's going to be moving on whatever book they're putting that in. But when we look at the total, it kind of even makes it a little bit more confusing. The total opened at 47.5, and that hasn't moved. So you start thinking scores of that game. I mean, the totals are usually pretty tight. So like a 24-21 or 27-24 or 27-21 kind of game. It's going to be a tough one. It really is. I think Debo's going to be healthier. I think McCaffrey is going to be nice and healthy. The scary thing for the Chiefs, they could be better. Gay, their top linebacker, he didn't even play. I mean, he was supposed to shadow Lamar the whole day, and he didn't even play. And that defense looked great. Or was Baltimore that bad? It's something they're going to have to really analyze and look at this next week.
Well, let's look at this again, because I just brought up the FanDuel Sportsbook out of curiosity, and it has San Fran minus 1.5. So at what point, though, do you pull the trigger on odds? At what point do you say, even if it's now, I mean, yeah, you might be worried about an injury, but not a lot's going to change after the first week, like you mentioned. I mean, if you wait a week, you're not going to see a big fluctuation. So at what point do you pull the trigger if you like the odds?
Well, if you're a Chiefs person, you had to jump on it at 2.5. I would be literally shocked if they get any more points than 2.5 or 2. And right now, it looks like it's steady at 2. If you're a Chiefs person, I can jump on that. If I was a Niners fan, I might wait. If money keeps heavily poured in, the one site I looked at, they had the Chiefs bet at 70%. So if that continues, that line's going to have to come down. They want that as close to 50% as they can get it. So a San Fran fan, I would wait. And I think that line could become more favorable to them, especially if Chiefs money keeps rolling in. But I can't see the Chiefs getting any more points. They're not going to be throwing Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, Kelsey. They're not going to be throwing them more than I can't believe it opened at 2.5. that makes me really look at this game. Uh, I haven't met anyone yet. I haven't talked to anyone yet that told me they're betting San Fran. Not one person. I got one buddy, huge San Fran fan. We call him the Sarge. He had his San Fran socks. He had team-made socks with his name on them. I know he's betting them, but that guy's been a San Fran fan since I've known him as a little kid. I don't know what the hell the deal is. He's Joe Montana guy, I guess. So, but aside from him, I don't know anybody betting the 49ers. And I'm sure there's a lot of California money. You wonder, San Fran, you got a lot of those tech nerds up there, Jeff. They can throw a lot of money around. They got nothing to lose, those guys. So maybe that's where this line's coming. It's a really tough thing to say. They did look good in the second half. They did storm back. And if you want to compare just, 1.5 games, San Fran, I mean, they peaked in their second half. Kansas City, they kind of sputtered through. Not scoring any points for 2 quarters is not a good omen going into the Super Bowl for anybody.
Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Next week, we'll have a whole show dedicated to the Super Bowl. I want to ask you, though, Pez, how do you handle the fun stuff with the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl block pools, or maybe some of the prop bets. I don't know. I've not known you that long, probably since week 4 or something of the NFL season, but I've got to know you since then. I don't see you putting money on the color of the Gatorade that's going to be tossed on the winning coach or the length of the national anthem, which just screams that if someone had a connection to who's doing that, they could really manipulate the numbers. But still, what's your take on some of those prop bets and the block pools? How do you handle it?
Jeff, I was in Vegas once for a Super Bowl on a ski trip, and it's dangerous. We did bet the coin toss. We did bet the time of the national anthem. Um, which is something you got to be careful. Who's keeping that clock? We thought we won, and it turned out that there's an official clock keeper. That who knows this guy? I don't even know if they exist. Uh, I have bet all of those dumb things, but what I like is find a pool where you're betting that stuff. I got a buddy that runs a big one. You bet, will the first commercial be a beer commercial? How long is a national anthem? He's got all kinds of great numbers in there. Those are fun to do. I've been in $1,000 block pools. I've never won anything from it. I don't think I've ever won any money from any block pool, but they're fun. And you got to make sure you trust the person doing these block pools, and you kind of want to do one that people. My wife was asking me about it a little bit. People buy these blocks, but there's no numbers out there. And she asked me, how come there's no numbers? I said, well, 7-7 or anything 7-0 is going to be the good one. She said, well, how do they do it? I go, well, they're done randomly after everybody buys a block. She's like, how do you know they're not just helping their friends out? I said, no, that's a good point. She's Sicilian, Jeff, so she's always thinking between the numbers. She's got it in her blood. Trust the people running these pools. I've been in big, you go in with a couple guys, you jump into $500 block. I've never won anything. Now I'm starting to think back a little bit. Who was pulling those numbers? So if you don't know what a block pool is out there, you buy a whole grid of boxes, and then randomly numbers are assigned. You get one number for what the home or away team. At the end of each quarter, you get paid out. At the end of each game, you get paid out. And if it's a tie ball game going through 3 quarters, somebody's making a ton of money.
Yeah. My dad actually would run boards at his work when he was working, and he gets on so many boards. It is incredible. I think that he and his best friend, they probably both pump out close to $1,000 on these boards throughout all of Wheeling in that area of West Virginia. They're going to bars. Hey, here's $100. We're on it. And they split anything that they make. And I will say to you that he has more often than not, he's made his money back and then some. He gets lucky. And they get on so many boards that they'll go to a bar and they're like, hey, you hit on the board. He goes, oh, really? We hit the halftime score. So they'll make their money back.
Sure.
He gets on so many, but it is a total crapshoot. But they are a lot of fun, though. It gives you something to root for.
What we find controversial a little bit at Pez's Picks is people that buy multiple boxes, and I'm in one right now. And you could argue that there's some ethics behind that maybe that's not the proper thing to be doing here. And I think there maybe should be rules. 1 box per person. I think if you're a stand-up gambler, you buy 1 box, go find another pool to buy a box. Kind of takes some fun away when a guy or a woman, wins, 2 or 3 quarters here. I'm a believer in 1 box. I buy 1 lottery ticket. Anytime it's over $1 billion, I buy 1 lottery ticket. You don't need any more. Now, do you increase your chances? You probably do a lot. And if you're into big money, it might be worth investing $500 to buy 5 boxes in a $100 pool. Having said that, I mean, you can equally lose those, but you're each time you're buying, you're doubling your chances. So that's something to look at the rules a little bit as well. I mean, that's a big one. I have a buddy who's already picking his FanDuel team. He's picking his lineup, which I know you probably know, Jeff. I know people know out there. You can bet a fantasy lineup
Oh yeah.
for the game. And
Mm-hmm.
if you pick these strange players who never score and they score, my buddy will say, out of 8,000 people, I'm number 18 right now. And so you can have a lot of fun with that. You can match up golfers with quarterbacks. And I mean, we're going to have a whole bonanza of things to talk about next week with that
Yeah,
game.
for sure. Now, I will say this. My theory on the block pools, I don't trust anyone that doesn't let me write my name on the square that I want.
Sure.
So the old school way is not, "Hey, I'll put you on the board." It's you gotta come over to the house or at the place of business, and you literally put your initials or you put your name or whatever on the actual piece of paper, cardboard, whatever you're doing it with, because that's how you avoid some fishy stuff. And I also like
Sure.
the you get 1 box. You pick 1 box and then we move it on to the next person. You're not buying 10 boxes on 1 board. That's not fair.
Can't
So
benefit the rich any more than they're already getting, Jeff. Let's give everybody a fair shot here, right?
there you go. Get fair shake. All right, we're going to give you some picks today. This weekend is a big golf tournament, and we've talked about golf. I talk about golf a lot on my podcast, Fairways and Dreams. You can check that out wherever you get your podcast, Fairways and Symbol Dreams. But also, golfing is really tough to gamble on, as you've talked about. Picking
Oh,
your overall winner is like a raffle ticket.
it's great.
It's almost impossible, but there's more betting to golf than just the winner. So this AT&T Pro Am at Pebble Beach coming up. This is a fun one. What are you thinking here, Pez?
Well, we talked a little bit, Jeff, after we talked about what I was liking this week. Both of us like Jordan Spieth this week.
Yes.
I mean, the numbers behind this guy, he's playing really well coming out early in this season. Um, he's got he ranks third in total strokes gained among those players in the field in the last 10 rounds at Pebble Beach. He's been dominant throughout his career at Pebble Beach. I'm going to be shocked if he's not in the top 5. His putter's been heating up the last few months. I got him at 18-1. I think you said you had him 16-1.
Yep. Say plus
And
1,600.
pretty good odds for a guy
Yep.
that's Hall of Famer. I mean, what's he have? 4 majors right now.
Yeah,
I
he
think
could have more too if he didn't collapse at the Masters a few years ago.
he's a fun golfer. And this course is a weird one for golf. People that don't golf or bet golf out there, they measure courses in yardage. This
Mhm.
course is playing under 7,000 yards, which is a course I think I could shoot well at. I mean, there's courses sometimes playing close to 8,000 yards. So
Yep.
it's not a long balls course hitter. Tiny greens. Pebble Beach, I think, is the prettiest course in the world. That one in Kahlua. I don't know why. I mean, I love Augusta, but I would love watching this course. I like looking at the houses. There's $100 million on those courses, on those houses, and it's public. It's a public
Yeah.
course. You got to be able to hit wedges. Everyone's going to bang the ball up the wedge distance. Wedge play, tiny greens, and if you miss a green, you are screwed in Pebble Beach. Deep rough, bunkers. You got the ocean. Wasn't it Spieth last year? He almost died hitting the ball
Yeah.
off the cliff.
Yep.
Guy put his life on the line for Pebble Beach. How can we not go with this guy? He hit a ball off of like a 500-foot cliff that his caddy had to run in. The guy did a little bit of the wobble. I love him this week, and I think he's poised for a big season. I think he knows he's getting to that age where you don't start winning majors, you start losing them. And
Yeah.
once you get into your 30s, the clock starts ticking. I think this is going to be a big year for that guy.
Well, on top of that, we're recording this on Wednesday, and so they have the practice rounds there today, and the wind is out of this world. I mean, there's par
Right.
threes where pros are hitting driver into the wind because it's
Awesome.
that crazy. So when you're talking about the small greens with the weather coming off the ocean, you want someone that can scramble. There's very few on tour right now that can scramble as well as Jordan Spieth in terms of getting up and down out of that rough. But I've got another play. We talked about this. The California kid, Max Homa, has the same odds at 16 plus 1,600. I like Max Homa here, but Pez, we talked about before we hit record, there's all these other bets on golf that you can run
Sure.
into. I love the specials here in this tournament. I went with Jordan Spieth and Max Homa to finish in the top 10, including ties, plus 600. I like those odds. And there's a bunch. Like somehow Rory and Scotty Scheffler have the best odds to win this tournament. I just don't see them winning. Rory's coming off a win in Dubai a couple weeks ago. Scotty Scheffler hasn't won yet on tour, but he's played well. He played in the opening tournament. He played really well down in Kailua to open up the season in Hawaii, but didn't win that tournament either.
The one club that McIlroy has always struggled with. I mean, you could argue putter, but I think his putters, his wedge game stinks. He has trouble with distance control with that wedge. I heard it might have been one of the British guys last year, or actually no, I think it was Jack, said I think he swings too hard with that wedge. He's got to start laying off a little bit, and whatever it may be. I don't count him on this course. Scheffler, his putter's been cold now for about 10 months. I think I'm a better putter than Scotty Scheffler right now. So without putting on this course, you gotta be sturdy. You got to be able to play in the wind, like you said. Phil Mickelson has won here recently. I think Gary Woodland, might have won a couple years ago before he got
At
sick.
the U.S., he won the U.S. Open there.
So you got to be steady. Got to be able to hit that ball in the wind. They say when it gets windy, you got to have kind of a John Rahm kind of ass thing. You got to be sturdy. You get blown around when you're out there. It could be cold. It could be hot. I mean, you got to be prepared for everything. And I like the California players. I like the Texas players. Texas players all play in the wind. So that is one notch for Scheffler, but I don't think the putter. Spieth is checking all the boxes for me. I got one other guy, another California boy, getting a little bit better odds, 22-1. Morikawa won that U.S. Open in California. He is making his tournament debut, but this guy's got, you could argue, maybe the best wedge play in the world. I mean, he is precise. He can hit that wedge 50 to 100 yards. I think he's first right now. Strokes gained from 50 to 100 yards, and number 6, 100 to 150 yards. Those are numbers that tell me 150 in, this guy's one of the best in the world, if not the best right now. Can he roll putts in? Can he hit the ball straight into the fairway? I mean, that's going to be a little tougher. But he grew up in California and Hawaii, knows wind, ocean courses. I've played a couple. We've got one in Atlantic City. It's tough to play because you're looking at the ocean, you're looking at Atlantic City, you forget you're even out there, right? I mean, it's just beautiful. So I love this week, and I believe this is the first week that we're going to have in these new rules where we have no cut. I think it's 80 guys, and it's a jumbo purse, I think 20 mil.
Yeah.
And I think, it takes a little pressure off of the pros too.
For sure.
The old school, Tiger's old school was, you get to you try to stay within 5, but you make the cut. And then Saturday's your moving day. So maybe these guys do come out and they try to go after it early because they got nothing to lose. And, you're getting a big payday when there's only 80 dudes and you have $20 million to give away. So I don't know. I think one sneaky Ricky Fowler could maybe be good in this. He's got a crafty short game.
I was thinking someone else. I'm thinking someone that's already won this year on the World Tour. Fairway Jesus, Tommy Fleetwood, plus 3,300. He's been playing good golf this year. Bad year last year, but he's a European, and he's definitely used to the wind and playing that style of game. Hey, you want to take a long shot? That's 30. Sure. That's a big win if you put some money down on that guy.
British guys are great in the wind, and he had a great Ryder Cup. Yeah, I think for years he was the best player to have not win a major. I mean, I think he slipped a little bit, so you don't hear him as much. But I love Fleetwood. I would pull for that guy. The British guys play well out there too. I think Mickelson beat the other British guy in the playoff when he won 2 years ago, and that's a good course for British players. They're used to small greens and tight old courses. I wouldn't be shocked if he won that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, good stuff, Pez. As always, what are your final thoughts before we head into the Pro Bowl weekend?
Well, if you're a smart husband like last week, I took the family out to breakfast. I had the whole day, Jeff. Wife told me I was a hero all day. Okay, this week, they might not even know, Jeff. If their wife's not into football, tell them, say, hey, I'm taking the week off of football. Let's go to the zoo. Let's go to an amusement park. Go to the movies. Do something you don't want to do. Next week, you can get after it early. I know most people now, men and women, and the biggest growing viewers and gamblers in America on NFL are women. So That's a great thing. If you're lucky, your wife's into the football like mine. You get to watch the games with them. But be a good dad, be a good husband this week. And if for the women out there, if your husband's not into football, make them cook you breakfast. You get the week
There you
off
go.
too. I
Yeah,
mean, I encourage
absolutely.
that. I'm an
Yeah.
omelet guy, Jeff. I'm an expert in the 2-egg omelet. It's something I pride myself on here. I argue I make the best east of the Mississippi. I like to enter a contest. I've got some special cheeses and vegetables I put in mine.
Well, maybe we'll set that up for you. But for this week, Pez's picks, you got to give you some golf picks. Next week is going to be a big show. So make sure you tune in as we talk about the Super Bowl and give you our picks there. Pez, as always, thanks a lot. We will talk next week. Take it easy.
Love it, Jeff. See you.
See ya.